Hello. Today I'd like to just give you another little idea of things to do with your leftovers. Leftovers are so delicious, but they often need a little bit of help just to make them into another delicious something the next day or whenever it is. So I've shown you previously in a Quilting Tips and Techniques video number 106 how I store my leftovers. I try and cut my leftovers into strips. I've got drawers, nice little plastic drawers here, and I've labelled them with the different size width strips that I do. And today we're going to be using some more 2.5 inch wide strips. So I've just got a little selection of them here. This is all strips, sometimes they're squares and things, but it's mostly strips that I can then cut to length or into squares when I'm ready to use them. So I have all different sized drawers available to me, which is very, very nice, and I'm a bit spoilt. I do get a lot of leftovers, however, so it's quite a good way to do it. So when they're already in strips, they're ready to use for things. And I thought today we'd just make this simple rail fence block just using some strips. So they're 2.5 inches wide, so we now need to cut them to length. So I've got some random length 2.5 inch wide strips here. They're not necessarily all even or anything on the end, so we'll just need to trim them up. And I think you can probably cut about 4 fabrics at a time. It just depends what you're doing. Of course, we only need 3 for a block. So we'll just make a couple of stacks here, and I'm just going to trim off the end. So I'm just lining things up so they're nice and straight with my board, and I'm just going to trim off the end. So you do need to make sure your your leftovers, we've got to get this right, haven't we, are long enough. We're cutting them to 6.5 inches long, and they are just long enough, those. They're just the perfect size. So I'm just going to trim up the ends so we've got a nice neat end. And we're just making a nice little selection, it seems, of blocks that are 6.5 inches, which I'm going to do something with at the end of it all, no doubt. So then I'm going to come along to 6.5 inches, and by laying 2 lots like this, and again I wouldn't suggest you go more than about 4 fabrics deep because things get a little bit wobbly with the ruler, but it just makes things a little bit quicker. So these bits are obviously not worth saving, but anything that's still big enough to get squares and bits out of, well, I pop those back in the drawer ready for the next time when I need some 2.5 inch wide pieces. So I'm just going to join my blocks up randomly. I'm really not worried about what colour goes where, although I probably would just keep an eye that I perhaps didn't put the 2 reds right next to each other, but other than that I'm not fussing too much. So I'm just going to make a couple of blocks while we're here. Very simple, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you can chain piece these. So this is a great idea if you've got some leftovers. Often I cut my bindings for quilts actually at 2.5 inches wide, and there's often little bits and pieces of those left. They go into my leftovers pantry that's sitting there, and it's just so useful when you do want to make something that everything's half ready for you to go. So I'll just pop another one through here. Not sure how many I've got here, but we might have enough for another one. These are very delicious, some of these fabrics. Okay, so you can see that this is going to be quite a quick block to prepare, and I often just make some blocks so that they're on hand ready for a project that might pop up that we suddenly need something fairly quickly for. Then I've got some blocks ready to join up, or you could be saving them for some particular project. So it's just 3 strips that we're going to be putting together for these blocks. They'll measure 6.5 inches, so a 6 inch finished block. And one more while we're here. And then I'll quickly press them, and that's another 3 blocks to add to my little stash. So a lot of us know about stashes of fabric. Well, we can have stashes of blocks as well, ready to put into something else. Okay, this one I'm not going to use today, so that goes back in my drawer ready for another occasion. And I'll just quickly press these. So I'm just going to lay my strip down and press the seams all in one direction. Oh, look, this one's got chocolates on it. How bad is that? You just want to eat it. That's what makes quilting so delicious, is all these delicious things that happen unexpectedly. Just go into your drawer of leftovers, and what do you find? Leftover chocolates. How good is that? And even cupcakes, tomatoes. Oh, a little bit of healthy food. That's so good. So now I've just made these blocks. I've just made 3 of them while you watch. You can see it doesn't take long because I've got my leftovers organised. I can just grab some strips, make a few blocks. You can be making them in between other projects and just gradually adding to a nice little stash. So that in my drawer here for my block stash, we've made some 9 patches, we've made some 4 patches, now we've made some of these rail fence blocks. So just another idea for a block that you can make up fairly easily from some leftovers. Thank you.